G'day, everyone. Welcome to the Keeping Watch podcast. It's the usual suspects that are in line here today. It's all brought to you by topsport.com.au. Remember, if you're listening to this via Apple Podcasts or Whooshka or Spotify, make sure you subscribe to the podcast. Keeping Watch brought to you by TopSport. As I mentioned, the regulars are here. Australian player number 400. He's seen on Fox Sports. You can hear him on Triple M. You can hear him on this podcast. I'm talking about Brad Haddin. And, of course, the number one seed, the CEO from up there in Top Sport is Tristan Merlehan. Hello, gentlemen.
Hello, Jimmy. Tristan, how are you, boys? Geez, we're really on fire with some of our predictions.
Yeah, it's been a good start to the series. We've been right on fire. I'm sure we'll pump up our own tyres to get into it. But you're good to have a chat, boys, and looking forward to discussing plenty that's happening at the moment.
All right, for those people who are wondering what on earth we're talking about, and Tristan and Brad waiting for me to chime in and pump their tyres up. So Tristan went hard yesterday about David Warner being the highest run scorer in the Australian opening partnership. We'll get to that victory over Sri Lanka in the T20, but well done on that. I think $2.08 was the price that you were getting.
Yeah, it was $2.08 to beat Aaron Finch, which I thought the boys had around the wrong way, and then to high bat he was $4.40. So he was I'm sure even now in your older years, Brad, you might have taken that catch behind the stumps that was put down. So I think he got a little bit of a life, but I reckon the other teams may regret that. That seemed to put him into a bit of form, and bodes well for Aussies if the top order sort of starts to fire.
I tell you what, that's a good bet with David Warner. I know if you watch closely in the South African game, there's a couple of shots to me that showed he was starting to get his mojo back. And one thing I said about David Warner, he wasn't out of form. He was just out of runs. And it's two different things because he just hadn't had the opportunity to play any cricket. He just needed some match time, get a bit of rhythm. But there's a couple of shots. Rabada bounced him and straight on the badge. And he got in a great position. He hooked it for four just behind, which I thought, hang on a minute, he's picking up length and the ball really well. And he jumped into a cover drive. First one over pitch, he jumped into it and he started to get his movement patterns right. And he got done by a pretty smart bit of bowling in that game against South Africa. So, mate, I think that was easy money.
All right. So there, don't be chuffed too much about that, Tristan. Yeah, the good cricket knowledge knows it was easy money. But well done. And the other one, of course, it was 2 weeks ago when Haddin said, Ben Stokes, he'll play in the Ashes. Sure enough, that's come through in the last week. So well done on that. The other one you said was at the start of the T20 World Cup, Tristan, what price is Pakistan? And here we go. Anyway, they were $11. They're not $11 now, Tristan.
They're not. They've been an absolute massive go. They're into the favourites in the tournament. Obviously started really well, knocking off India in the opening game. And then, in the opening game, they're into $3.50 tournament favourites now in front of England at $3.75, India at $4. So great spot by Hads there. They've been a big go. And I think now anyone that was able to secure that price at the $11 or what they were at the start of the tournament, you've now got the option. Do you ride out the volatile Pakistan team, or you could crush yourself out of it and you give yourself a bit of a position where you've got a bit of free cash rolling around for you, which, to me now, we've dodged that early money. I'm very happy to lay Pakistan at the 350. They look a good side, but, I think there's a number of other sides out there that at the price now, I think they're enormous value at 11s, but at 350, I'm happy to take them on.
The first thing that comes to my mind when we talk about Pakistan is inconsistencies. And can't get away from that. We've seen some of the world's best performances till, right down in the basement performances. But one thing that really impressed me about the second game against New Zealand was that first game against India. Mate, they came off an emotional high. They'd never beaten India in an ICC event. You've seen the reactions in the country. There was only 500 million people watching the game. So no pressure at all on them. But from an emotional point of view, to come back up and get right for the next game, that to me shows this might be a different Pakistan team that we're used to. So I was really impressed with that. They're coming up against Afghanistan next game. And Tristan, I'm interested in this one. Jimmy, get your coins ready, and Tracy can also in the background get the pocket money out. I want to know what the odds would be from Pakistan v Afghanistan for 50% of the wickets or more to be taken by spin.
That's a really interesting market, and the boys are really keen on setting up a heap of markets for the cricket. So what I'm going to put that to the trading team. We've got all our toppy match specials up. We've got 260 markets up on literally every game. So I'm going to put it to the trading boys now. I'm going to put a special Hads request up on this market. But looking at what we've got available, obviously got the most wickets. Rashid Khan, 350. We know how good he is from his BBL days. So he's going to pick up a lot of bowls. Mohammad Nabi as well, $4.80. Now, the Pakistanis, the shortest price bowler there is Shaheen Afridi, 340, Harris Ralph at 420. So there might be a little bit of value there to find. So I'm going to put it to the guys now. I reckon it'll be around about pick 'em because the decks do seem to be turning.
I tell you who I'd like to have a go at there for most wickets is Majib. Yeah, so he is $4, and obviously out of the heat, so $4 about that. I reckon there's a little bit of play there too.
He got five for last game, didn't he? Five for 20. So, and he's got a couple of fifers for the heat. I remember watching him. He's a very, very good bowler.
Well, I tell you what he does. He's one of those bowlers. He bowls the tough overs as well. He bowls in the power play with the new ball. He's one of those mystery spinners. He flicks it out the front of his hand. He'll bowl a wrong un. He'll bowl a seam up, in and away. But the one thing he does really well is he challenges the stumps. And I think this game's going to be played at Dubai, and it's a little bit can be up and down with that new ball. So if there's anything in the wicket and he's challenging the stumps with that new ball, that's who I'd like to take.
All right. Tristan and the traders will get that market up. Anything else you want, Brad? You're okay. You're all set. Just satisfying every request here. We're going to ask you, mate, Quinton de Kock, this has become a massive story. The latest is that he's now back and available for South Africa. South Africa, it was on the bus on the way to their previous game, and that was when Cricket South Africa made the announcement that all players had to take a knee in support of Black Lives Matter. Quinton de Kock withdrew from the game for personal reasons, and then the furor started from that point. Based on what you've seen, Hads, in your career, and, of course, watching this very closely across cricket around the globe, what was your take on what transpired over the last 3 or 4 days?
Yeah, I want to talk to this, Jimmy, from a cricket point of view, and that the event they're in now at the moment, the World Cup. Well, what's disappointing to me, and reading Quinton's statement, is that they got together after the event and spoke about what they wanted to do. These things need to be spoken about before the tournament. You're united with the messaging you want to give, and everyone's really clear on what role they need to play, because South Africa in the past, it hasn't been an easy change room to be a part of, and especially at times in World Cups. We've seen some of the best South African teams with De Villiers, Callis, even go back to the Donalds and the Pollocks, lead into these tournaments, red-hot favourites, and not progress as far as they should do in these tournaments. So to me, it's disappointing that it's come up now that this issue wasn't sorted leading into it. So once they get to the tournaments, it's about cricket and doing the best they can for the badge on their chest and playing for South Africa to be one of the first teams to win an ICC event for South Africa.
I completely agree with that. And I think the timing of it, as you say, is just horrible. Like we want to be talking about cricket, we want to be talking about the sport, or we want to be talking about these issues in a positive fashion at the biggest stage of cricket. And, we're talking about something now that could have been avoided, could have been done at the outset, and everyone would have known where they stand. By the sounds of Quinton's statement, if he had had time to digest the information that was handed to him with a little bit of lead time as opposed to the bus going to the game, I think the whole situation would have been avoided, or they would have had a discussion and kept it in-house, that it would have been the best way to attack it. So I'm completely in agreement there. It's been disappointing how it's played out, because it's overshadowed the whole tournament when we've had some really good cricket in the last few days, and that's where we should be focusing on.
And a lot of what we were hearing was it was a response to Cricket South Africa rather than the response to what it meant to take a knee for Black Lives Matter. So in a really sensitive area, without an opportunity to give some further thought to it, discuss it with your teammates, discuss it with team management, et cetera, et cetera. It's an interesting one. He's a very, very good cricketer, very good cricketer. So be interesting to see how that plays out. He's only 28 years of age as well, too, so he's got a lot of international cricket in front of him, Quinton de Kock. All right, let's get to the T20 match last night. Australia taking on Sri Lanka. That's the one we're really interested in. Well done, Davey Warner, finding a bit of form. Now, had you covered this? What was your take on the overall team performance?
Yeah, I tipped South Africa. South Africa. I'm still thinking about Quinton de Kock. Sorry. I tipped Australia yesterday. I had a close look at the Sri Lankan game and they won against Bangladesh. There's a couple of things that came out of the game. Sri Lanka played a really high-tempo game. They were aggressive right through, which is the way you play 2020. But what that comes with is also with the high risk is that there was a lot of chances given to Bangladesh and they weren't good enough to take them. If they had taken some of their chances, that result could have been a different game. And going back to the Australian game in the first one against South Africa, what they did really well was create a really uncomfortable environment with the way they presented in the field. They were on, and that's the sign of a team's attitude towards each other to go deep in the tournament. So they bowled really well against South Africa. There was signs in the batting that, yes, we could have done a little bit better, but it's tournament play. It's about getting better and better as you go along. So I didn't think Sri Lanka were going to get the same luxuries that they did against Bangladesh. And in the end, I think Australia just strangled them, and they're just way too good and showed their class.
I reckon it was a really good timing game, that one for the Aussies. I think our batting lineup's been a little bit down on confidence. I think there's been a few guys there trying to get some runs, as you say. Warner in particular, he hasn't been out of form, but he's been out of runs. And Sri Lanka, to me, they look a bowl is short. They conceded 170 odd against Bangladesh. When it's been a pretty low-scoring tournament. So it felt like it was a really good game for the Aussies to play them at that point where we've got England coming up. Hopefully get a few of these guys back into a bit of form, get some confidence on the board. They cruised to victory, chased down a pretty tough score with 3 overs to go.
Can I ask you about team selections, Hads? Excuse me, Stark was playing, so that was a little bit of a surprise given based on what we heard in the lead up to the game. But Ashton Agar is still missing out on cricket. How many... Is there going to be a change to this Australian side, or are they going to go through with the 11 that they're using now?
I tell you how they're going to look at that. They're going to look at that on different surfaces. I think what they'll do, I think the 3 quicks will play the whole tournament. I think they complement each other. But you're talking about Mitchell Stark there. So the one thing he does really well, 2 things he does really, he swings that new ball and he's a wicket taker up front. And so how you're going to use him is you're going to see if the ball swings. If it doesn't, you'll take him off and you bring a Josh Hazel or a Camo into the attack who enjoy the new ball as well. But Mitchell Stark then, who cares if he bowls 1 over at the start because he's the best death bowler in the world. So I think they complement each other really well. And I think Adam Zampa's earned the right over the last probably 24 months with the Australian team. He's man of the match last night also with 2 for 12. He's going to be the first spinner picked and he suits these conditions. So if you're going to play Ashton Agar, it's going to have to be for one of the batsmen, whether it be an all-rounder in Stoinis or Marsh, or you make a decision with one of your batters, because I don't see them changing these 3 quicks because they complement each other so well.
Do you think with the back of the boys putting a few runs on the board now, that might give the selectors a bit of confidence that they don't need that extra batsman in the lineup? Because I'll look at the scorecard, and of those 4 overs where they've tried to find with the all-rounders with Stoinis and Maxwell last night, we've gone for 51, which is a concern when we take on those better sides. Now the fact that Warner and Finch scored a few runs up the top, it might allow us to play that extra batsman with Agar, and we know he can will the willow as well. Do you think that'll come into the thoughts later in the tournament?
Yeah, I wouldn't think too much about Agar's batting. I'm only picking him on an out-and-out bowler. But another one up the sleeve as well. You've got to find 4 overs. You've got Mitch Marsh, who hasn't bowled yet in the tournament. He'll suit these conditions as well because he hits the wicket hard. Stoinis in the IPL bowled a lot of tough overs. He did a lot of the grunt work at the death. So he's open to bowling under pressure. Maxwell, we've seen the first game. Finch had the confidence to bowl in 4 overs. So I actually like the balance it is at the moment. I think when we're looking for that 5th bowler, I think we're better than 4.5 at the moment. I think we have some really good. I think you can play around with how you use that middle order as well.
One of the things that you made mention of, Brad, before we came on air, is the significance of the toss. Australia won the toss, and maybe this, Tristan, you can talk around the price of that. But give us an understanding of why the toss is important in this T20 World Cup.
Yeah, it's going to be an interesting one, and it'll be interesting to see your markets, Tristan, as well. When you have the day games, I think you're going to see a few teams they'll bat first, and then there'll be an option to bowl. But I think you'll see a few teams bat in the second half at the night games. When you win the toss, you're going to bowl first because there's a big dew factor over there in the UAE at this time of the year. And as we see, once that dew sets in, no matter how good your mystery spinners are or your quicks, it just becomes hard to hold the ball. The wicket just gets his shine on and skids on the bat nicely. So the dew's going to play a big factor in what they decide to do in the night game. So my gut feeling is most night games, you'll see whoever wins the toss will bowl first because they're happy to chase with the dew coming into game, and their quick bowls and spinners can hold the ball.
Yeah, well, you're right, Jimmy, that the prices will change a lot. And just looking at the data, we've only had one team bat first and win so far in the regular part of this tournament. So it's a really important point. When we had the IPL, which the dew was so important a couple of seasons ago, that was massive, and the markets were moving 20, 30 cents. I haven't seen as big a movement in the marketplace just yet. So it might be one to keep an eye on. Like, watch what the movement is after the toss. We get the markets back straight up, 10 minutes after the toss with all the player options there. And I think the way the cricket markets work around the world, there's some big syndicates there that are playing off their data that may not have taken this into account yet. So there might be a little bit of value to be had if you follow that little lead. And there's also some other options you can look at. Obviously, it favours the team batting second. So some of these markets where teams do get the most fours, most sixes, you might be able to look at some of the teams batting second to be successful in those plays. So
Sunday, our time, 1:00. So Saturday night, Dubai, and that's the night game. That's Australia versus England. So that's at Dubai. So Brad, tell us about Dubai and the significance of that from that toss point of view that we've just talked about, but also from the deck as well.
Yeah, I just lost you there. Sorry, Jimmy. You need to repeat that?
Yeah. So tell us about the significance of the Sunday game, or it's a Sunday morning our time, but Saturday night game. So night game. So the toss is going to be important, but also Dubai and what it's like as a deck and what impact that's going to have on maybe team makeup for England and Australia, and certainly the way the game will play out.
Yeah, I think that'll be an interesting one. I think whoever wins the toss there will decide to bowl. I tell you what, England were red hot the other night. I watched their game against Bangladesh. The way that they presented in the field and with the ball, it was as clinical as performances as I've seen from the England team in a long time. They are number one ranked in the world. This is a team without Ben Stokes, but the one I thought they'd miss most was Archer. He bowls well on the UAE wickets. He's got that height, and he bowls with extra pace. So an inconsistent bounce he generated, but Mills took that role really well there as well. He's a left-hander. He was clever through the middle. He used his change-ups, but with a lot of aggression as well. So, yeah, England, to me, you see why they're number one in the world. And I just enjoyed the way they presented in the field. So this is going to be a great game as well. You know how much these two teams love beating each other. They've got a long summer against each other, so it'd be good to get one up on the English.
It wasn't just the Bangladesh performance they put into the field. They rolled Windies for 55 or something in game one, so they got their tails up. Adil Rashid, obviously 4 wickets in that game, so the spinning deck might come into his favour. So, we really need a few runs on the board. So, yeah, it's going to be a cracking game, and it's going to. I would suggest the winner of that game goes close to tournament favourites after that result.
Yeah, whoever wins that also now qualifies, you'd think. That they both go 3-0. So I tell you, out of that West Indies game, West Indies now, they are going to be a nightmare. They are going to be a nightmare for the rest of this tournament. They look like they can't make it now, having 2 losses. But the one thing they've won 2 2020 tournaments, the only team to do it, and they've got match winners. They are going to be annoying. They're going to have a big scout in this group stage before the end. So I don't think they can make it now, but they are going to contribute a lot to the makeup of that final 2 because they're going to knock some big names off.
All right, we're going to get some tips from you, Hads, for the listeners very shortly. Before we do that, just wanted to jump into some Sheffield Shield. 3 games being played around the country at the moment. Great to see New South Wales and Victoria getting some Shield cricket. Performances from Sean Abbott, very timely. Uzuma Kawaja scored runs. Marnus Labuschagne has got runs as well. But you suggested that there might be a bit of an issue coming up for these players. Well, certainly for their state associations because of their availability.
Yeah, I think there's a squad of 25 that's going to be picked soon to play a game in Australia, a game as well. So there'll be 25 players taken out of state cricket. So it'll be interesting. I'll tell you the one I was interested in also was Uzuma Kawaja. He's got back-to-back hundreds now. We don't know the fitness of Rahul at the top of the order or in the middle order. And the one thing Usman has, he's got a really good record opening the batting in Australian conditions. So this is a marquee series for us. There's a bit of doubt about the top order. And at the moment, he's just put 200s together, and that's what you want. You want your batters in an Ashes campaign. You don't want to be second-guessing their form leading in. There's enough pressure on you with the Barmy Army, the theatre behind it. So Kawaja's putting his name right up there. And Abbott as well. It's a huge moment for him, not just to get those 6 wickets, but the timing of it. James Pattinson, I thought was going to play a role in the Ashes, and he's just stood down from international cricket. So we know we've got the big 3, but we need 4 and 5 and 6 quicks to win an Ashes campaign. And I watched a little bit of Sean Abbott bowl in the first day of the Shield game. What I was impressed most with is his cricket smarts. He was using the wicket nice. He's going in close to the stumps. He was using the crease well. And he looked to me a class above anything else, apart from Nick Maddison, actually, in that Shield game. That, to me, looked a bit dull, actually, the Shield game, apart from what Sean Abbott and Nick Maddison produced.
An interesting one. With your point on Kawaja, do you feel, obviously they're talking about him coming back to the top of the order for the Aussies. Do you think there, is probably a slight concern in my view, seeing him come in at 4 for Queensland? Like, it's probably a bit easier to score, 100 when you're 2 for 203 walking out to the crease as opposed to facing the new Bill in the first test of the Ashes series. Do you think there's any merit in maybe putting him back up the top of the order to put him in that position to get himself, see if he can get back to that position?
Yeah, I like the point. I'd be more concerned with that if it was a young batsman. Someone who's been around a long time, experienced most of his life up in the top 3. I'm not too concerned with that with Kawaja. What I like is that he's putting big numbers up. I like that he's saying, listen, you've got a spot, and now I'm scoring those runs when I'm under pressure and there's a spot, pick me. So I'm not a concern. If it was someone else, a younger kid, you'd be a little bit more concerned. But for someone like Kawaja, runs are runs, and I'm happy.
The other thing we wanted to discuss, 2 new IPL franchises. So you've just increased your opportunity to continue to be employed significantly there, Brad. Well done on that one. But the prices that have been paid for them, I think the cheap one, I believe you were the underbidder on one of them, but the cheapest one was $750 million US paid by CVC, which is a private equity group. So this is not only a massive increase on what the values of the teams were previously, but it's all this money that's going into cricket, but in one particular type of cricket, one form of cricket, and that's the IPL. What was your take on it, Brad?
I thought it was extraordinary. I just thought I think it was worked out to be combined at over $1.5 billion. Yeah, it was just something like 250% up on the original price of the team. It just goes to show the enormity of what the IPL is and what world cricket's dealing with. India, we know, is a powerhouse of the game, but the support and the love they have of the game over there, it's only getting bigger and bigger. The interesting thing now could be that they've got 74 games in the IPL. Will these new franchises be happy with just 74 games? It's such a big outlay. Do they want more? Do they want more tournaments? So, but it's a great opportunity for players. There's 2 more squads. So 2 more squads of 25. So there'll be 50 more players on the lookout. And come this new auction, we've seen a number of times. There's been life-changing moments for some of these Indian kids. Some of them, you hear the stories where they've come from and just the enormity of the money on offer. It changes their life forever.
Do you feel you're hitting the ball well enough, Tristan, at the indoor cricket so that perhaps you maybe make yourself available next auction?
Yeah, I nicked out a bit unluckily there a couple of times, or about 10 times there last innings. But I reckon, just get a little balance of luck, and maybe I can put my name for it. But yeah, just need a couple of runs to get the ball in the middle of the bat.
Hey, Hads, who's going to be the Aussies that you mentioned those extra squads and obviously the greater amount of money to be spent on that? Who's an Aussie, a young Aussie that you think, wow, they're going to have 10 years playing in the IPL? We saw Tanveer Sangha come out and he's already made a mark in T20 cricket. Now he's playing his first class game and picking up wickets.
Yeah, my first thought I was hoping would be Zachary and Hugo Haddin. They've got out the back now. Not just bat, make sure they're bowling their leg spinners and fielding to be the whole round package. So, yeah, it's going to change their lives. That's why it's so staggering the money that's been thrown out. So, I think guys who are just starting to get a taste of international cricket and they've got an opportunity to perform the big bash like Josh Philippe and players like that. But I think the big benefit will be the Indian talent. You watch some of the Indian talent, and we've seen since the IPL, India have middle order batsmen, top order batsmen falling out of trees. You're just going to see the enormity of the talent they have over there and being exposed to another group of coaches, the pressures of IPL. It's just going to get Indian cricket stronger and stronger. But you know, I know Zach and Hugo are down doing push-ups with weights on their back at the moment.
Hey, keep the eye on the ball. Keep the eye on the ball. All right, now you've given Tristan's team a little bit of homework to do for the market that you want. I'll have that up very shortly. What about some of the other tips you're looking at with this T20 World Cup, mate? Anything else catch the eye, Hads?
No, not at the moment. I'm interested in Jason Roy, and I think we've spoken about that. I think the best time to bat is going to be in those first 6 overs. So I can see a lot of the leading run scorers coming from the top 3. But at the moment, no, I think I've given them enough work. Another one.
Just on that market, Hads, because I think we haven't spoken about that on air. The boys have put that market up, the top run scorer, as we've been chatting today. And Jason Roy is sitting there at $13 to be the top run scorer. This is for the entire tournament. He's even money for the top English batsmen. So $13, as you say, if he's up the top of the order, there's going to be plenty of runs scored. A couple of those Pakistan players that we've been talking about, Babar Azam, $7.50 there. He's $7.50 to be. He's the favourite top tournament run scorer. Kohli just behind at $8. And David Warner, I don't know if he would have been around this price last night, but he's into $12, fourth favourite to be the top run scorer. So maybe the bookies have him finding a little bit of form, which would be great for Aussie fans.
What about Rohit Sharma?
Rohit Sharma is down the list a little bit. Right here he's at there we go, $14. So he's just behind Jason Roy. So he's definitely up there. KL Rahul as well, $15, the next one back.
There you go. There's a couple of very, very good players in Cahill, Rahul, and Jason Roy. I think's a smoky. We've seen how bullish he was the other night at the top of the order, and he's one of those players who can go long periods out of form, but if he's in form, he can hold that time as well.
The only thing I'll say to that point, and it's a great thing for English cricket, but if the English bowlers bowl first and they rock and roll the teams for low scores each time, that might be the only thing if he's not chasing many runs each time. But certainly, if they bat first a couple of times, he might be able to put up a big number.
Did you play with Jason Roy at the Sixers?
Yeah, I did.
Yeah.
Mate, he was an interesting one. Mate, he's got a great set. He does some amazing things in the field. He took some unbelievable catches. A backward point, getting horizontal. But I was always nervous with Roy when they just lobbed a ball to him. The harder he had to do things, the better he got.
Can I tell you? I'll tell you guys a little story about Jason Roy. I don't have quite as fond a memory of him as what you obviously do, Hads. We had one of our big punters, and he backed Jason Roy in the Ashes. I think it was last series, and he backed him to be out under 41.5 balls. And he was sitting on 40 balls. So he needed to last one more delivery, and we had a good result for TopSport. And he's come charging down the wicket. He's gone halfway down to eighth line, and he's had a complete air swing and been stumped on the 41st delivery. So my head dropped a little bit. The remote controller might have been chucked. And so that one wasn't as enjoyable for us, but he's a very good batsman. He does take some classic catches.
Yeah, that's very good. Very good. Righto. Now, listen, Hads, just before we say goodbye, and a big thank you for being part of the Keeping Watch podcast again today. Last time you were on, you brought Nathan Lyon on. Now, I don't know, Tristan, proud Queenslander that you are. Why don't you set Brad a little bit of homework for who he gets as the next guest on the podcast?
Yeah, well, we very much enjoyed Nathan Lyon on. I don't know. Obviously, we've got Ashes coming up. One of the big players in recent history. November time, we're getting into November. I'd love to see the bloke with the big moustache come on. Is there any possibility, Hads? Mitch Johnson.
Mitch Johnson, I tell you what, he would be good to get on, mate. The way he terrorised people in that 2012 Ashes, I think I've said to you guys before off air, I've never seen grown men walk out in a game with fear in his eyes. There's only one other person who had more fear facing Mitchell Johnson. That was Ryan Harris in the nets. But you know what? He'd be good to talk to. And he's a good guy. You can have a bit of fun with him, but I'll see what I can do. I'll see if I can track down Mitchell Johnson somewhere. November time, he's always out and about. I wouldn't mind talking to him about his experience on SAS. I know Jimmy's put his name up for that as well. So I get some tips off him. But you know what, boys? Leave it with me. I'm a little bit disappointed you just didn't enjoy me. But you know what? I'm not that one to get offended, and I won't take it personally. I enjoy that we've changed the name of the show from the Jimmy Smith Show. So that'll make it a lot easier to get clients on. So
True.
We'll see.
True. Very true.
That sounds like a challenge. Looking forward to that.
Yeah, good stuff, Hads. All right, well done, boys. Thank you, Bradley. Thank you, Tristan. And good luck to the Aussies when they take on England on Saturday night / Sunday morning. No doubt we'll all be up watching that one. Cheers, boys. We'll look forward to doing it again.
Thanks, guys.
Yeah.